Yeah, we're live and it's morning time, 7:15. It's good time to be awake. Let's talk about what you guys got done today on your projects. As promised from the morning show yesterday, I told you what I had on my list today or yesterday was to get the cylinder heads that I have. I have two heads that I got from the guys out at the car farm. Thanks, Ben and Brian. Awesome. Shout out to those guys. They supplied me both the bathtub head and the come on, somebody help me. It's early in the morning. um, and the other head, whatever it is. I can't remember the name of it now. Somebody tell me what it is. Um, both style heads, but the thing is that they were all dirty and stuff. So what I did was, so we got the old pressure washer out and sprayed them and cleaned them all up. And then also I was going to, what I wanted to do was get the, yeah, it's an open chamber head. It is. It's one of them's kind of a closed chamber, one's an open chamber, but there's verbiage that they use to describe it. Um, it escapes me now. But I also want to get the L28 up on wheels. Basically, what I did was we just used the a furniture dolly, put another piece of wood across it, and the L28 was sitting on almost like a wooden shipping crate. And so what we did was lift the whole thing up, slide the furniture dolly underneath it, and then now I can wheel it around. I found a really good spot for it underneath other cabinets that we have. So for right now, it's in a good spot, and more importantly, it can be wheeled around and it's out of the way. Whereas before, it was just kind of sitting in the middle of the garage. Those are all things that are important to get done. So if you've got, let me know in the comments what you guys got done off of your list yesterday. Did you get something done? And let's start off by, I mean, it's really important. We were kind of getting ahead of ourselves yesterday. If you have to do, before you can cross stuff off of your list, obviously you have to have a list. And that's the first step. So it's important, if you haven't done that already, make a list of things that you want to get done. Simple things, start out with something easy, like make a list for a week and go, okay, these are the things I'd like to these things are easy, I can get these done. And then post a list up where you where you can see it, hopefully where other people can see it, so that they'll keep you honest about it, and go and get go out and get one of those things done in the day. And that's what I did yesterday. I'm like, well, it's like everybody else. I got a lot of stuff to do. I got a whole bunch of live feeds to do. I got a whole bunch of videos to do. I've got, my wonderful kids and my lovely wife and all of that. It's all stuff that has to happen. But you got to grab, a few minutes of each day and get something done. I also had a meeting with the guys from SCAT and Airflow Research, and that went well. So we're looking into seeing if there are available pieces for the trophy 4-cylinder, which would be awesome. We want to get a 400 piston and a rod assembly for the trophy 4-cylinder, so we can put that back together and get it running. We had the camshaft shipped out to, I think it's Delta Cam, that will regrind the stock cam. So we'll get that going. And then what I need to do actually is try to find another stock cam, because that one was already worn a bit, but it will make for a good regrind kind of thing. Too early for the squirrels. It might be. So I'll have what I ideally on the trophy 4-cylinders. What I'd like to do is have a stock cam, have this regrind one, and then I actually want to have another cam made that will be a hydraulic roller, because the LS stuff, the LS hydraulic roller lifters, will go right into the Pontiac, and then we can even use a little hold down assembly and stuff. So it'd be kind of cool to have a hydraulic roller in there. We have a variety of different heads. The guys from Speedmaster supplied a bunch of things for the a bunch of Pontiac pieces that they have, and we'll be able to use there are two intake manifolds, a single plane and a dual plane. One of the single planes has provisions to run EFI on it, which would be cool. And I probably will cut that one apart and make it a dedicated 4-cylinder intake manifold rather than having to build my own. Scott, maybe we might do 2-a-days. That would be good, right? And then we can run it fuel injected and run it as a blow through. I'm trying to work with the guys from Torque Storm to get a supercharger for that because they have a, yeah, that's just Scott. I'm keeping you honest, right? They have a supercharger kit for a Pontiac V8, and so it should bolt right on and work on this 4-cylinder the way that the 4.3 liter V6 worked, because it was basically the front of a small block Chevy, so it didn't care. So I was able to run the Torque Storm supercharger on the 4.3 liter, which was very cool because it's nice to have, like on that application, just like with this trophy 4-cylinder, it's nice to have things, more parts available for something that, let's face it, the trophy 4-cylinder, Pontiacs don't get a lot of love to begin with, but the 4-cylinder version is even less well known. So obviously there's not a lot of coverage in the aftermarket for that. So it's nice to see, a supercharger kit for a 4-cylinder Pontiac. Obviously, we can also run a turbo on that. So I'm excited about doing that. There are a bunch of different heads that we can use. And I think given the stock cam and even the mild reground cam, even though the pistons will probably be flat tops and will be done with valve reliefs for the later head so that we can run these later intake manifolds on it, we want to also run the early head on it and just redo that head, basically just a valve job and surface and stuff. And with that stock cam, given the fact that it was so tiny, I don't think piston to valve would be an issue at all. So I'm hoping that's my hope, is fingers crossed. I'm hoping we run the early head with the stock cam and maybe with the mild cam, and then do a bunch of testing with that. I want to make a homemade. I've got to get a guy to weld up the cast iron manifold for me. So if there's anybody out there that welds cast iron, what I want to do is make a tri-power out of the stock intake manifold and do that. That will be cool. So I can run 3 2-barrels on it, or 3 1-barrels. So it'd be kind of a tri-power. It'd be half of a tri-power, because it's half of a 389. So that works out perfect. I can also run other early manifolds on it, but I don't know how much of that will do. I probably will put the later heads on it and then run the later intake manifolds on it, because we have a few of those. So we can run single plane, dual plane. We've got a couple of them at West Tech, and then I can get some of the later intake manifolds, also the later V8 ones, and cap them off and just run it, because that will be kind of fun. And then run an EFI, supercharged, turbocharged, a few different ways. It'll be really cool. So that's what I'm excited about on the Pontiac 4-cylinder. The Dodge Omni, somebody were asking about that. I won't. There's no updates on the Omni because I left the Omni back with the guys at the car farm. You guys have probably seen the pictures and the video that's up of the Omni of me driving it. The only thing was that we painted the engine compartment and then got the motor up and the motor and trans and everything together and in the car and drove the car. And then that's how I left it. So it's going to be painted. The whole thing is going to be painted. And then we're going to redo some things because the motor and trans are going to come back out. They are going to fix the, basically where the shifter is located, and then redo the cables on the shifter. And we're also going to put a different clutch and flywheel and pressure plate on it, because it's going to need something a little bit more serious. What else was going to be done? I don't think too much else. I think the motor's right. I think there just we needed to look at one of the drain hose on the turbo and make sure that it is sealed, because I think it might have been leaking oil a little bit. Probably will also take a look at the factory radiator and intercooler assembly. The radiators those are hard to come by, especially for the L body. And so probably what we'll do is maybe rod out that radiator or have it rebuilt, just to make sure that it's in good shape. It was working when we were driving it, but you want to make sure that it's in good shape. So we'll have a radiator shop probably take a look at that, because I don't think anybody sells anything. I think it'd be really hard to find a radiator specifically for that fits that. I would almost like to take some measurements on that and see if I can get an aluminum version of that. But for right now, we'd like to maybe you should braise the cast iron yourself. I've never done that. Not that I can't learn how to do that, but I haven't ever done that. Oh, Bigfoot, sorry to hear about your tractor, man. So we got to have a poll for today. So the poll will be will you be working on your project vehicle this weekend? Could be a project vehicle, or in my case, it's going to be a project engine because those are all the same, or transmission. They're all projects, right? Center ports used to have a dual friction for those. I think that the ones that the guys for somebody was talking about the clutches for the Omni GLH. I think that the clutch assembly that they use quite often is they use the T3, like from the Spirit RT. They use that pressure plate, and then a different disc. Obviously, we're just going to buy you can still get flywheels for these things, so we'll get a new one or resurface they have a bunch of stock ones laying around, so or we can resurface that. So I think we could buy a whole clutch and pressure plate and flywheel assembly from Rock Auto, pretty inexpensive. So we just want to make sure that all of that is running correctly. I want to look at the brakes. That car does have, the previous owner had put four-wheel discs on it, which is kind of cool. And so I want to make sure that as we talked about yesterday, somebody had asked me about building a road race car, what was the important thing to have? And for me, the number one thing is brakes and then handling and then lots of power, because the power part is already is easy. We can, and the nice thing about one of the great things about, and why I really like these kinds of little turbo cars, is that more power is just, it's a E85 and boost and away you go, and then tuning. So it will be interesting. The other thing I'd like to try on the Omni, we'll try to do some things on the chassis dyno as well. So I want to try E85 on the chassis dyno, and I'd even like to try to do it the way that guys might try to do it without having a standalone ECU, is basically if we can upgrade the injector to something that flows 20, 25, 30% more fuel, put that size injector in, then we could just run E85 on the existing program. The only thing is, if we don't know what the timing is, and maybe we'll do some old school, some analog data logging, and just watch it with a timing light and see what's happening while we're making pulls on the chassis dyno. As long as we can do that safely, we'll just mark it and see where it is and go, oh yeah, that's at 10 degrees or 4 degrees or whatever it is. And then we can kind of get an idea on plotting a curve, because we could run it at a fixed RPM on Westech's Superflow chassis dyno, I think. So we could hold it there long enough to get a timing reading. So we could plot a timing curve under boost and see what it's doing. And then, but then if we ran E85, we could run E85 with more injector flow and get the right air fuel, and that could work. The ideal way, obviously, would be to just take our Holly and set it to the side of the car and run the wiring harness into the, next to the car while it's running on the dyno. That's certainly something we could do too. I don't know what James's problem is. Let's see. still don't remember what the name of the cylinder head is. Brazing is much like soldering. Will the stock market end up or down? It will end up one of those, right? You're building Chrysler 2.4 for 900 horsepower. So are you doing you must be doing the SRT4 motor, right? The 4-valve. Finally finished the rear end last week, 323 to 410s, G80 to Power Max grip, waiting for the tune. The cam exhaust work. Well, that gear change should definitely change things. Won't be home. You'll be at a family outing. That counts. Doing something on your project almost every day. Yesterday, went to a car show. Did the signature exit burnout and ice cream. As long as you didn't do a signature exit burnout and crash. Today need to go shopping. That counts. You need a drink to clear the morning fog. I think that would add to it, right? About parts today, yeah, that counts. Fresco beverage. Danny, Richard, I appreciate all the science in your videos. Just about every question I have, you have an answer for. Might not be right. No, I'm happy to help, man. I see my kids off to school. Me too. Yeah, that is kind of, there are lots of Mustang crashes. Let's see, Richard, speaking of chamber, closed chamber stuff, why, if you run a closed chamber piston in an open chamber head, they say it lowers compression. Volume is volume. If the chamber has more dome on it than like if you have a flat top and a closed chamber and a dome and an open chamber. Wait a minute, what are you doing? Let's see, speaking of chamber, why if you're running a closed chamber piston? Oh, okay, so yeah, so if you run a dome in an open chamber head, as opposed to running a flat top piston, it's going to raise the compression. It has to, it's just volume, you're just displacing it. That's why we put those dome pistons in there. The swirl head, that's that I finally, 2 hours later. Analog data logging is becoming a lost art. Yeah, you have to do what you have to do. You know, sometimes you want the. I like the little my little ring light swirl in the background there on my jet engine. .410 is a bunch of gear for a short tire and no overdrive. It does make cruising on the freeway a little more difficult. Project Coy. Don't be coy. Radiator Express has a shadow radiator for 125, not for intercooled shadow. Yeah, that's the problem. You can find a lot of the bigger, the full size, we call them full size radiators, but getting the one for the L body is different than the one for the Daytona and stuff. Richard, make me a list on what we can do with our 86 Fox Body GT. It has SV aluminum heads, B303, 373 gears, shift kit. What can you do to make it nicer? You could put does it still have the T5 in it? You could put a different transmission in it, like a T56. You obviously could put a power adder on it, which would be really good. You could put nitrous on it. You could put a Vortec or ProCharger or Torque Storm supercharger. You probably could. Does it still have if it's an 86? Oh, you already put heads on it. Then so you fix that. How about handling stuff? You could put shocks and springs and sway bars. Oh my. Hypo 289 C4. Josh, is there a good way to find out if the Dove C heads of my 71 429 have hardened seats installed without pulling them? I don't know. I don't know what the test method for that would be. I don't know if people can tell that by looking at it. The Fox is getting the Amer. The Ameribear is probably too tall, I would think, for a Fox. It also has an electric cooling fan. That's good. How fast did you go in your Honda for the land speed record? The record, the number is 226 point, I don't know, 845 or something like that. So it went near 227. It reached a speed higher than that during the run, but the recorded number that they give you is different than your maximum speed. Man, I wish I was working on it. 2006 Chevy Silverado, 5.3 truck Norris cam, ARP studs, daily driver. I have the turbo kit stuff. Need to swap the 4L80, figure out fuel system and electronics. So I think that there's lots of videos out there on swapping a 4L80. I kind of wish I had one of those in my truck. I actually wish my truck was a two-wheel drive truck, but because I don't really use four-wheel drive much anymore. What are you going to do with your Fox Mustang? Just drive it around, probably. Did you see the new harness Mr. Vanderhoof just released some videos on? Matt showed me sent me a picture of a harness, but I don't know what it was though. Hunting season, that counts. No land speed stuff with the Mustang. Be more likely that just out of nostalgia that I would take it back to the Silver State race, which would be kind of fun. Big Mike, man, off to work. What's your opinion on close versus wide ratio transmissions and boost and rear gear? I think that the train of thought is that the turbo stuff, because it makes so much torque, doesn't need very close gear ratios. A wider split tends to be better, and they don't need a really steep rear gear either. Yeah, actually going that fast on the Civic was not that eventful until the half shaft pulled out. Then it got a little eventful, but you have a parachute and it just kind of saves it all. But it's actually really nice going that fast with a front wheel drive car on the Salt, because it just tracks straight, and the back end doesn't try to pass the front end like it does in most rear wheel drive cars that have a lot of power. When are you going back, Richard? When are you going back to Maribera testing? I do need to. I just have lots of stuff. Two-wheel drive would have made the trans swap a little easier. You know, honestly, I remember talking to people about this long ago because we were talking about taking the trans out to fix a rear main seal and doing various things. I remember people talking about, oh, it's four-wheel drive. Yeah, it's really hard. It's not. All we do is just unbolt the transfer case and just push it out of the way. It was basically just more bolts and not anything, not anything difficult. We didn't even pull the transfer case out. We just pushed it up out of the way and kind of held it in place up in this little, we used the Harbor Freight ratchet straps and just made another brace for it. And it was kind of nice. 227 Civic probably requires safety foam. No, it was nice. It was it has a cage in it, although I would like to see more of a cage in it. Definitely hard to stay motivated on project. It is. That's why I'm here, to get going, get out there and get something done. 2 projects in are the planning stages. That's where all of our projects are. We'd like to get them and plan them. First is adding turbo to my BMW 530 wagon. That would be good. 7 psi N55 turbo makes it remote mount. Second project is planning building a RAV4. Cool. RAV4 with an LS4 swap. Okay. Silver State would be cool. When does the channel build start on the you're talking about on the Mustang? Well, the first thing I'd have to do is take a road trip to go get it because it's out in Roswell, New Mexico. Yep, and when you're doing projects, don't look at the whole thing. That's why we make our list and make abbreviated lists. Look for just getting something done. Forget about looking at a thing and go, man, that's like I would always look at the Nova. That's so much stuff. Look, that whole thing's rusted. They have to change this. I've changed this. I've changed this. I should have just done what Oliver ended up doing. Just stop being a sissy and get something done and get an engine in there and get it running. Yesterday, a 2-day-old Audi SQ2 pulled out in front of my truck and was hit by American Baja Racing. Oh, that's not good. Roswell, yes, it's getting alien tech. Yep, pick one item on the list. That's all you have to do. It doesn't matter about the whole thing, and it may look like you're not getting anything done, but, you know, every adventure starts with one step. 85 T-type, I do like those. Can't decide on a 5360 or a small batch 8400. I would do an LS in that because there's lots of them available. And I would do a 5.3 for me because they're a lot easier to find and much less expensive than a 6-liter. And then since it's a T-type, it needs a turbo. And then so a single turbo 5.3 will be able to make all the power that you would ever be able to harness in that car. When are you going to Roswell? I don't know. That's on the list of things to do. The Mustang will be my goals for next year are to get the Mustang running and get the Z running. So I want engines in both of those, or motors in both of those. And so I need to get the Z motor up on the dyno and run a series of tests on that motor, and then use that motor to put in the Z and get it running. I'd stick with the 3.8 turbo and a T-type. You could do that. You could also do the 3800 as kind of an upgraded later version of that. So I'll build a Vortec 4200. I've done some testing on that. I've got a couple of videos up on testing that we did on one of those. The RB would be nice too for the Z. That would be good. Once I send my Crown Vic in for paint, I have to finish my drag car. 1982 wheel drive Hilux chassis. Ford 5-liter EK Civic shell on top. You have a Civic shell on top of a Hilux? That's pretty adventurous. Vortec 4200s. They do sound good. I really like the 6-cylinders. Definitely sound different on the dyno. We usually run them under boost of some kind. I think all the 292 we ran boost on. The 4200 I ran boost on. I haven't run the Slant 6 yet, but that will definitely get some kind of boost. Although I'm a little worried about that after Dulcich has had nothing but bad luck on running the Slant 6 that he's had up on the engine dyno with the ProCharger on it. Have you thought about what you're going to do with the aluminum 5.3 you got from the junkyard? Yeah, I've done a bunch of stuff with it already. It's been used for a lot of testing. Do you think the D1X ProCharger flows enough to make 1,000 wheel horsepower? Yes, it does. Is that if we've done it with a D1SC, so I think a D1X will also do that. 1,000 wheel horsepower might be a little more difficult, but we made 1,000 flywheel horsepower with a D1SC. it had to have a good intercooler upgrade on it, because with the standard intercooler that they sent, it wouldn't do that. But when we upgraded the intercooler to the 3-inch or the 3.5 in and out, it made a big difference. I was thinking of going to a 2650. A 2650 will definitely do that. I have a 96 Impala looking for mid-nines. An F1A 94 Pro Charger will easily do that. In fact, it'd probably be more like 1200 or something if you want more power. What motor am I doing for the Fox? Probably initially I would put a 302 in it just to get it running. But that L33 in there would be nice, because I also have a T56 trans for it. I have an 86 MR2. Very cool. I had one of those, and it was a 1.6 in it. Yep. I pulled the 1.8 from a Corolla. I'm going to build that for boost. Good. Putting a big block MR2 together. Currently in the process of installing a double fuel pump drop-in, installing the methanol injection. Well, that'd be good. Fingers crossed I get my truck engine, the Dodge 318, ordered soon to do the turbo or supercharger build. Are you buying a 318 from somewhere, or are you going to the wrecking yard to get it? Yeah, Michael, that 4200 is not an easy fit in a lot of stuff. It's it's long, obviously, like most 6-cylinders are, but it's also very, very tall. So an MR2 in Raleigh that had a 2.5 V6 swapped into it. I don't know if I've seen the early ones like that, but I think that the Boosted Boys did the K series in one, right? Putting the Pro Charger back on the Fox. I never had a Pro Charger on the Fox. I had a Vortec on it for a long time. I love the MR2. It taught you what oversteer was, especially lift throttle oversteer. And they were great little cars. I wish that I would have had the supercharged version, but a turbo on that thing would have been fun. J35 Honda swap in. Those are good. I have a 12 rib with the F1A 94 require a cog set. Probably not. We've run them with 10 ribs on the engine dyno a lot. The tensioner setup that Pro Charger has works pretty well. Okay, Nomadic, you had to order a short block for it. Okay. They're swoopy and light. Yep. I set a record for the fastest MR2 with the K swap that's green and with red interior and has power windows. I believe the 2650 will put it in the 9s. How much does the Impala weigh? 2650s, especially ported versions of those, you can make a lot of power. Probably use a GMV6. The high value and high feature engines both look promising. They make good power. Tremec T5 with a V6 bell housing. Saving up for a transmission. That's part of the list as well. And Grip Tech pulleys those are hard on belts, but they do grab. So how is our poll doing? 71% said they will be working on their project vehicles. Good. Oh, the Impala weighs 4,400 pounds. Yeah, they're not svelte. Wrencher, I pulled my heads and inspect and fix a leak, and the ridge on the cylinder wall is almost 1/8 of an inch. That's a lot. My friend in Modesto has an 1MZ FE in the back of his MR2. That'd be good. I think he has a supercharger now. Cool. I need a place. That's also a problem with some of these project things is it would be nice for everybody just to have shops that they can wheel stuff into and get stuff done. Can you run a supercharged 3800 rear-wheel drive? Yeah, they have them in Camaros already. So Camaros and Firebirds. So that bell housing, in fact, is what we're using to run it on the dyno. Have you put a Gen 4 Hemi head on a Gen 3 block? No, it bolts on very easily, but I haven't tested any of the later Gen 4 stuff. Put a shed in your backyard. That works. Yep. As long as it keeps the rain off and the snow. When you have a lift in your home workshop, you have lots of friends. That's it. In my years, I've never seen with the ridge. That does seem like a lot of ridge. I'm trying to remember if because the Magnum that we had was a high mileage Magnum, and we just swapped the pistons on that because we were doing the piston flip, and they just swapped right over. So there's no ridge on that one. Was this an LA motor? Is that maybe why? Maybe the earlier blocks were like the earlier Chevy small blocks wore a lot. Do you watch NHRA? I haven't watched drag racing for a long time. I have been to some events. I've been to watch Top Fuel and stuff, which I think it's something that everybody should go do. Every car guy should go do. That's the problem with having a 2-car garage or a 3-car garage or a 5-car garage, is that you can't have empty space. You got to fill it with stuff. And if you have project cars, then it's filled with stuff that doesn't run, which is what gave me the incentive really to get the Omni running, and now to get these other cars running, to get the Z running. I just want them all to run. They don't even have to be making 1 million horsepower, and they don't have to be show cars. They don't have to be anything like that. Like with the Mustang, I would honestly just like to get a stock 302 in there and get it running. And then I can always make more power. After you get something in there and get it running, me building another 302 or an LS or whatever it is and getting it in there, not really a big deal. Yeah, if the oil comes out chunky style, that's not good. When it comes to racing, I found out that I'm a better participant than I am an observer. I think that that's true with most sports. At least it is for me. I can remember sitting going to watch the Long Beach Grand Prix with some buddies of mine and thinking, you know what, next year I don't want to be sitting here watching people do this. Next year I'm going to be in this race, not in an Indy car. And I was in a Bridgestone supercar. Yeah, I would imagine something with a ridge like that would, if the cylinders are that worn, it's got to smoke. The rings might not even be like touching everywhere. I can't pull anything over 81 inches tall. Garage is in the basement. That's one of the problems that we had when the truck broke down. When the transmission went out, the guys came to get me in an enclosed trailer, and the truck wouldn't go in the enclosed trailer. We're like, oh well, we can. It was missing just by a little bit, and so we just let the air out of the tires and rolled it in, and that got us the extra clearance that we needed. I turned it on G4 earlier. They had to scoop the sludge out. Yeah, that's not good. I found out that waiting for parts burns out all of my energy by the time they arrive. Yeah, you get depressed, but at least it's going to happen. And while you're waiting for those things, try to multitask. While you're waiting for those things to get there, go get something else done. Because there's got to be something else. The thing that's holding you up is not those parts. If it's a project car, like I know project cars, there's definitely something else to get done. Yeah, the sludge buildup and the oil thing, like that's the Pennzoil death. The liquid ball bearings, and they tend to conglom together. Yeah, the oil jello. Yeah, that's good stuff. The Bob, you're right. A 5.3 in the Fox would be nice, especially the aluminum 5.3 would be really fun in there. Going to the yard today, that's always a good day. 5-leg swap for 93 Fox body. Are you going to get a whole rear end then? Got one of the cars out of the backyard yesterday, and I'm almost starting one of my cars after some repairs. Good. Get them running. If you get them running, you'll like them a lot better. Harbor Freight in the house. First oil change I did smelled reminded me of the old Quaker State oil issues from the 90s. Yeah, or I remember putting Arco Graphite in my Camaro because it was the best. It was awful. That's always interesting when we get the motors from the wrecking yard. When if we have to take the pan off, normally we just put oil in them and then see if they're going to run. If they have oil pressure, we check the oil pressure and then see if they're going to run. But when you take the pans off of them and stuff, or even take the valve cover off of them, you see, oh yeah, these people did not care about it. No idea what the phrase oil change was. Enrique, you got to install lifters on your 2014 Camaro. Does it have a lot of miles on it? I used to use Kendall GT1. They used to sponsor a lot of stuff back in the day. I don't remember seeing, even in the auto parts stores. I haven't seen Kendall for a long time. I remember my dad telling me about putting, what did he say? They used to put in rear ends because they were making noise. They put sawdust in there or banana peels. I don't know if that was a story, but it sounded good to help quiet them down. When I got my LM4, I had to hot tank the heads for 3 days to get them clean. You know what I haven't tried that I want to try, and I might try it on because there's still some stains and stuff on this one of these heads that I have. I might try the oven cleaner on there. I think that works pretty well. Royal Purple, yeah, Royal Purple has been doing a lot of marketing. They're in a lot of movies. You couldn't find the oil filter. I also broke a push rod and bent another one. Did you miss a shift or something? Austin. So the HO47 made 335 horsepower. That would be a lot. There was a Sawdust episode on the Andy Griffith Show. Wow. Banana peels. That's his story. What keeps everyone pushing after you hit the wall? I'm struggling with an aftermarket throttle body EFI tune setup. I don't even want to open the garage anymore. You got to get one thing done, man. You got to go in there and tackle it. Don't try to finish it. Just try to get one thing done. Keep in mind that the guy that couldn't find his own oil filter worked for Jiffy Lube. Perfect. So don't get my oil changed in St. Louis. That's the upshot of that. I have a good tire guy that I go to. He's a small independent shop. Um, he's my kind of place. Like I like I used to go to there was a muffler place over by West Tech. Real good guys, uh, family owned, little shop. And so I go in and go, hey, I need to get this and this done. He's like, okay, well, what are you doing? I said, well, we're working on something on the engine dynamic. He goes, oh, okay, yeah, we could do that. I got a piece of tubing. He would let me go through the tubing that they cut off stuff laying around so I get bends and everything. And then his now they're like big time. His kids have come to work for him, which are like really super hard workers. They're great, and they're also great at social media. So now the place has just exploded. So it's become like, I hate it. It's become like a super legitimate business. All right, Fascist. We'll see you later, man. Yep, missed shift from third to fourth. Yeah, over revving it will usually can break a push rod. Rotella is good stuff. It's back in stock. Like Sniper EFI comes with a basic setup. Yeah, it has something that will usually make the car start and run. Sometimes take a break to clear my head, pick a minor thing and take care of it and get back at it. Yeah, sometimes you need to just go away from it for a second, because you go away from it for a day or whatever, go do something fun. That's like when I go and ride the motorcycle or take the GoPed over to 7-Eleven, go look for snakes, get away from it, come back. I'm all like recharged and ready to go. In California, can't you guys build a classic car, a rat rod, and not require permission testing? You can build stuff that's there's a date where we don't have to have them emissions tested. It's sometime, anytime before that date, then you don't have to get them certified. If you restore a car, a 90s car, and restore it, it definitely has to be, in California, it would have to be emissions tested if you're going to drive it on the street. Uh, 383 Astra. Oh, those are cool. Scott, do valve springs fatigue on an engine that hasn't run for a long time? You mean the ones that are compressed? You would think that they would, but I don't. I'd be interested to see that actually tested. So it'd be a long-term test, because then you'd have to test the springs, all of them, because you want to test the ones as a control, test the ones that are not compressed, test them all, and then test them again after a year or 2 years of sitting compressed, and see what the change is for both of them. Did time have an effect on the ones that weren't compressed? Did the ones compressed have a greater reduction in spring rate compared to the ones that were not? It would be an interesting test. I don't know if that does anything. Check TDC. Most aftermarkets require, yeah, you're going to have an offset. So 30 degrees, that's probably about right. Do you think it'd be hard to get 500 horsepower from a big bore Boss Block 532 valve with 195 trick flow heads and Edelbrock Victor Jr. intake? 500 flywheel horsepower would be possible. Because I've done 490 on a 4.6 2 valve. Might have been, I need to go back and look. It might have been a 5-liter with ported heads and not trick flow heads, just ported stock ones, if I remember right. But it did take a really good intake manifold. And I haven't tested the Victor Jr. on the 2 valve, but I think guys are making that kind of power. I should tear down the 429. You should tear it down since it's been sitting for 50 years anyway, and just make sure that it's okay. I actually would be less worried about the springs than I would be about other things like rust and stuff. But it might be a good idea to check the springs if you don't know what the springs are anyway. Richard, do you think high valve spring pressure is a cause of a loss of horsepower? I can tell you I've tested valve spring pressure and it does change power. There's the video is up. Mark Sanchez, smog laws exempt 1975 and older. Now California wants 14,000 tested 2 times per year. What do you mean by, Mark? I'm gonna have to call you and find out what you mean by 14,000 tested 2 times a year. .427 to my surprise turns over the breaker bar on the harmonic balancer. Good, that's good. That's a good sign. If it spins, it wins. I'm running an Urson solid set at my 383. How long can the lifter is going to last if I keep my foot off of that pedal? If it's a solid, is it a solid flat tappet? Urson, is it a solid flat tappet? The solid flat tappet is going to last a long time, as long as they were good to begin with, and that they get oil. What's the difference between a Holley 102 millimeter LS3 throttle body versus a Nick Williams? I don't know. Holley, I thought, sells a 105 and not a 102. Is it better to break in a cam with old valve springs? You can use old valve springs, or you can use any kind of light valve spring to break in the cam. Oh, any vehicle over 14,000. Oh, so big trucks, they want to do it twice? Oh, 14,000 pounds. Okay. Yeah, Baby Shark. We're early morning incentive for you to get your project stuff done, get something done on it. I was taught you want to break in cans with loose valve springs and work to correct tightness to keep wear things in, but some cans want air going to run break it. What you want to do is you can break them in. If you have a dual valve spring, normally would take out the inner and do that. You can also do it with, like, for instance, I know for small block Chevys, and they may have them for other applications, they have really, really low ratio rockers. Like they have 1.3 break-in rockers, so that you can use those, so you're not compressing the spring very much and not putting a lot of pressure into it. You can just break them in with the springs that you have and see what happens. There are a lot of ways to do it, but a light spring is a good way to break it in, so you're not loading the cam a lot during break-in. And then it seems like once the lifter surface and camshaft get acquainted, then they're happier. You can disagree. However, my grandfather, chemist at Shell, who had work for him. 2 years to disagree with you. There is a big difference in oils. They have different additive packages. That's not really a question. That's actually a real thing. Different oils definitely have different additive package. They have different detergent packages. That they design the oil. Most of them use the same base stock. There's only a couple of companies that make the base stock. So a lot of them start with the same thing, and then they put their kinds of additive packages, and so they definitely are different. The question isn't that. The question is, will all of those additive packages probably work in your motor? Do you have any advice on removing stripped exhaust collector nuts on a Chevy Silverado? It's still a vehicle attempting to fix my exhaust leak and ran into this right off the bat. We had a hard time getting the exhaust off of my truck, and it wasn't because it was rusted. They were just really, really tight with a long extension and a 1/2-inch impact. Obviously, use a 6-point socket on it, and you should be able to. An impact should be able to either one, get the nut off, because they should be studs. If it's a factory one, there should be studs with nuts on them. Should be able to get the nut off, or break the nut, or break the stud. Something should happen. You can break you can break a cam without running engine. Use an electric motor to spin it over. I try to rig an oil squirter system to ensure oiling. So you're gonna spin the cam. Are you spinning the motor over with an electric motor? Because that's going to be a pretty good electric motor. We do it while the engine's running. We send it through break-in cycles on the engine dyno. You can also do it on a run stand. You could do a break-in. You can't really apply load to it, but in my opinion, for a camshaft break-in, the load is more important for ring sealing than it is for the camshaft. The camshaft really is just RPM, and all you need to do is vary that. I swapped an L92 in an 08 Tahoe. I didn't have VVT connection, so I just left it disconnected. Do you see any issue with that? Well, you're not going to have VVT, so it's going to go to whatever the default setting is. And I'm not sure what that is. It's probably full advance or full retard. It's going to be one of those. Just like there isn't magic valve, there isn't any magic oil. They all do the same thing. They don't. The different additive packages will definitely do different things, but for 95% of us that are just changing the oil and getting oil in the car, lots and lots of them will work. Because like if I'm breaking in an engine, I definitely put different oil in it. We put high zinc oil in it for break-in stuff, and I don't run high zinc oil. I don't put that in the car when it's running, just driving around after it's broken in. But for my truck, I just put oil in it. Could you recap your L33 results? We tested all kinds of things on the L33. We tested a bunch of different cams. We ran turbos on it. We ran a blower on it. We ran a whole bunch of stuff on it. All right, Scott, you're out. GLHS Omni beat your 468.72 Monte Carlo with 273 gears and the 91 NMCA inaugural drags. And next with 373s and 250 shot. That should help a lot, right? So you're formatting your hard drive with a 12 gauge. That should work. That should clear everything off of there. Always use Valvoline or the nap oil because it's made by Valvoline. Yeah, it's just private labeled stuff. They do that with a lot of their parts. What am I going to work on today? I think I just got a notice. I'm going to go pick up the 350 Pontiac and Turbo 400 trans. And I might also get some oven cleaner and try it on one of those cylinder heads. Both of those cylinder heads have camshafts in them, and I think I might take those camshafts out and take the followers off of them. Purple Power, that's what we used out at the car farm. We used that for, you saw in some of the videos where we were cleaning a bunch of stuff, and that stuff worked really good. Were the 350 and Turbo 400 married at the GM factory? I don't know. It's just what was in this car. I don't know the history of that motor or the transmission. I'm working on street tuning 5.3 S475. Cool. .350 Pontiac. I have a set of old school TRW Ford Slugs. I don't even know what year 350 this is. I need to see which. So I need to see which head it has on it. Chris, if you're looking for 1,300 horsepower, you can get away with something quite a bit smaller than the S475s on your 496. Two of those GT45s, that's definitely in the wheelhouse for that. Super clean. It seems more concentrated than Purple Power. Green stuff can be used to clean carburetors. Oven cleaner works great on carbon buildup. I want to spray it on the combustion chambers and see if it takes the carbon off the combustion chambers. Using oven cleaner is chemistry. It's a strong base and it turns oil into soap. So it's saponification. What is the cheapest standalone engine management system? Probably the Mega Squirt stuff, maybe. I got a call today from the machine shop. One of the heads that pulled off the 330 was cracked, and the crank is trashed. So the whole motor's bad. I'm glad you're doing a live feed today. Yeah, I will be doing one later tonight also, and I'm going to maybe try to do two. We'll see how it works out. You'll want the early 67 to 68. Otherwise, you'll be lucky to get 8-to-1, 96 chambers and flat tops. Yeah, I just want to see which one, whether it has the early valve angle or the later valve angle. Maybe the 350s only had the later valve angle. Temperature has cooled down to a brisk 99 degrees. It's cooler here now in California. If it's a 4-barrel, well, but it has a 4-barrel intake manifold on it that's an Edelbrock, so I don't know what it originally was. Pioneer soap was made from cooking grease and lye. Wow. Kuwait's in the house. I had friends over there that were working over there for a long time, and now they're back. 2 more minutes. They say that a Pontiac 400 with its stock 4-barrel intake is just as powerful as it is with any aftermarket intake. Probably not any aftermarket intake. I did test the factory 4-barrel intake manifold versus the Edelbrock Performer intake, not an RPM, and the factory Pontiac intake actually made a little bit more power than the Performer did. I haven't run an RPM yet on it, which I'd like to. Flux. I don't have an answer for your spacer question because, in my opinion, the spacers that you test are really application specific. We've run lots and lots of spacer tests, and sometimes they do something, sometimes they do nothing. I don't know if I've gotten specific between different manufacturers of spacers. The Wilson stuff I like because I don't know too many people that know more about airflow than the guys at Keith Wilson. At Wilson Manifolds. But the thing is, even if the spacer flows better or is designed better, will the motor respond to that is a different question. The part that you're putting on can be fantastic, but if it doesn't gain you any power, it's really not because the spacer isn't doing what it's supposed to be doing. It's just that your combination doesn't respond to that. So unfortunately, you're going to have to test those. An oddball factoid: if you get an 81301 turbo distributor, you can run computer control timing, but you can only do that if you have a computer to control it, right? Because we can do that with any locked MSD distributor for a Pontiac also. If we're running it, if I wanted to run it as an EFI, we can run an EFI Pontiac on a Holley HP with any locked distributor. Did the Performer do better down low? No, I think it was worse everywhere. It'd be interesting to see you test a 408 LS with a bigger cam than usual. Like, what do you mean? I have tests up on a 408 where we went to, I think that the cam that worked out best was about 240 degrees of duration at 50. And then we tried something bigger than that. And all it did was end up losing power down low. That's not a universal thing. It's not always going to do that, but it did on that particular combination. That was about a 625 horse 408. Tim, go get going. Get something done. I use a Mega Squirt. Yeah, those work good. Dan, the one thing I can say is the aluminum intake obviously is weighs a lot less than the cast iron intake manifold does. So you're going to gain something there. But yeah, the Performer is not up to what that stock dual plane was. Is it good to overbuild the fuel system for longevity or reliability? Yes. I'm only looking for 500 horsepower, but I'm thinking of doing a stronger fuel system. You're not going to build a fuel system for 500 horsepower. Your fuel system will support 1,000 horsepower. If you probably don't need 1,000 horsepower pump if you're only trying to make 500 horsepower, but get a pump that will do more than that. Get at least 50% more, because then you're just going to regulate it down. And then the line size and the rail size are all going to be bigger than you need for 500 horsepower. Because we've done 1,000 horsepower with 5/16 fuel rail. So yours is probably going to be bigger than that. And we're going to go ahead and close out our poll. 69%, they say they are going to get something done. That's what I like to hear. You 31% get to work. You just need somebody to yell at you, right? I thought I had an injector and tune issue with the Holly and my turbo small block Ford. What's keeping you from testing everything with at least a little pipe out of the collector and mufflers? Something that would at least loosely mimic the setup the way it would be in the car. I don't know what the problem is with the exhaust that we're running. I've run tests with, we normally run headers and then an extension of pipe and then a muffler if I'm running mufflers. And I like to run mufflers on a lot of stuff. So we have about, I think that the pipe is probably 3 or 4 feet long, and then the muffler. And then we could run a tailpipe. The tailpipe isn't going to change any of the things that we're doing. It's not going to change the results of any of the tests that we do. We've already run headers with a collector extension, headers with this longer exhaust and muffler, and then headers with a full exhaust all the way out, because we can run a full exhaust in the dyno. It just takes an elaborate setup for hooking the exhaust up and getting it supported and all that. And the only thing an exhaust does is it lost a little bit of power, but the shape of the curve is the same. Nothing changes with the exhaust. The exhaust just becomes a little bit of a restriction. In our case, at around 600 horsepower, it was 10 or 12 horsepower. Germany's in the house. And on that note, good morning, everybody. Go get your projects done, and I will see you guys later today. Thank you guys all for showing up. Boom.